Airlines are making big changes, and not just to ticket prices. From new baggage rules to downright unfair fees, there is a lot to keep up with. Whether you're traveling next week or later this year, there are 10 recent airline changes every traveler needs to know about. A few of these could save you money, and a couple could save your entire trip. So hit that like button and let's get into the first big airline change. Right now, there is a carry-on crackdown going down. A few years back, even the strictest budget airlines were relatively lenient with letting you board with a slightly oversized carry-on bag. Their rules have gotten stricter, and in my experience, enforcement of them has increased too. I mean, if you ask me, budget airlines have taken their nickel and diming way too far, and it turns out European Union lawmakers agree with that too. Just a few days ago, they voted in favor of a proposal to include one free full-size bag in every fare. But it's not just about the size of your bag anymore. Some airlines have actually started weighing your carry-on at the gate. And I'm not even talking about somebody who shows up with very obviously oversized or overweight baggage. All kinds of airlines, from full service like Lufthansa to ultra low cost like Jetstar, have been cited for enforcing baggage weight rules at the gate. Some carriers are even weighing personal items. So if their weight limit is say 20 pounds or 10 kilos for your permitted carry-on bag, you'd better actually make sure it's not overweight. And a little bit of a peculiarity to the current changes going on with carry-on baggage. After a power bank caused a fire to start on board a flight in Asia, a number of airlines, including quite a few beyond Asia like Southwest, have started cracking down on the usage of power banks mid-flight. Just this week, China went a step further and banned all uncertified and recalled power banks on planes. When you're traveling with a power bank, the safest move is to keep it with you at all times. That means not in the overhead bin and definitely not in a checked bag. Due to the occurrence of similar incidents, that's been against checked baggage rules for years already. So now more than ever, it's really important to understand baggage allowances and rules before even buying an airline ticket. But buying tickets has been changing recently too, and there is a huge thing to watch out for. Right now, you could actually end up paying a higher price just because you're traveling solo. Now, for years, airlines around the world have offered special companion fares. Prices are sometimes cheaper on select routes when you book for two instead of one. You could say that's similar to what we're seeing now. But instead of airlines offering special prices for two, it now feels like they're basically penalizing you for flying solo. Just recently, 3 of the world's biggest airlines, Delta, United, and American, quietly started testing a pricing strategy that charges solo travelers more than people booking in pairs. A few weeks ago, Thrifty Travelers seemed to be the first to notice this on a few routes around the US, and it appeared like it might just be a trial thing. But now, many weeks later, just randomly searching for the first US domestic route that I could think of, it's clear the airlines are still charging more per ticket to travel solo on multiple routes. If you flew from Chicago to Lexington, Kentucky on July 19th, a ticket for one person would cost $284 on United or American. But for two, it would cost $453 for 2 tickets. That breaks down to $227 per person. So you could think of that as a $57 fee for traveling solo. If you often fly alone, it's worth checking the price for 2 passengers before booking, just to be sure you're not unknowingly paying a solo tax. But it's not just new baggage rules or new hidden fees that are changing your flight experience right now. Facial recognition is quickly replacing boarding passes. From New York's JFK to Frankfurt to Singapore, a lot of airports are making facial recognition the go-to method for boarding and more. Instead of scanning a ticket, the gate camera just scans your face. You can usually opt out, but to me at least, it's not very obvious how. I'd pretty much managed to avoid this until a recent stop at Hong Kong Airport. When I got to my boarding gate for my business class flight to Malaysia, it seemed the only way on board was via facial recognition. I can't say I'm a huge fan of facial recognition boarding. Oh well. If you're really not a fan and you want to avoid it, check your airline app or privacy settings before you fly. It depends a lot on where you are in the world, but you might still be able to board with a good old boarding pass. But let's focus in on one particular part of the world that's been seeing a lot of airline changes lately. Travel to the United States of America is down this year. To take a quick example, bookings from Canada to the US have dropped sharply. To adapt, a lot of airlines, from US carriers like United to international ones like Lufthansa or Air France, have canceled routes or cut back on frequencies. For you, that means fewer flight options, potentially higher prices, and longer layovers, especially for transatlantic travel. So if you're considering flying to or from the US anytime soon, I would recommend booking as early as you can and staying flexible. There's a good chance your flights could get canceled or rescheduled. As frustrating as that is, sometimes a canceled flight can actually work in your favor. You might be able to rebook on a better connection or even get compensation depending on the airline and the country. And to take a look at another country often abbreviated by U and another letter, let's take a look at the UK's new requirement to visit. As of January 8th, travelers from the US, Canada, and a bunch of other countries now need an ETA, Electronic Travel Authorization, to visit the UK. You could think of it as something like a Visa Lite. It's similar to what the US and Canada have required for travelers from the UK and other European countries for years. UK ETA originally launched at £10 or about $13 US, but in May the price was raised to £16, quid mate, or just over $20 US. Just be careful though, because there are a bunch of third-party websites reselling it for like way more than it's worth. The official website is gov.uk/ETA, and they also have an official app where you can apply easily on your phone. Once you're approved, your ETA is valid for 2 years, and airlines may check it before boarding since they're on the hook to fly you back if you're denied at immigration. I actually tested myself back in April before they raised the price, flying British Airways business class into London Heathrow Airport. If you haven't seen that video yet, definitely give it a watch after this one. It was an interesting experience, and it walks you through exactly what it's like using the ETA at the UK's busiest airport. And if you're the kind of traveler who stands up the moment the wheels hit the runway, well, the UK's new ETA might not be the only thing that costs you some extra cash on your next trip. The country of Turkey, now officially Turkiye, recently introduced a very interesting new rule. If you stand up or even unbuckle before the seatbelt sign is turned off after landing, you can be charged a fee. It doesn't matter if you've already pulled up to your gate or not, and the flight attendants are required to report you. I'll just put it out there that I fly in and out of Istanbul pretty frequently, and there's often at least 1 or 2 people on the plane that break this rule. Supposedly enforcement is strictest at Istanbul Airport, and some passengers have already been fined hundreds of dollars for breaking the rule. And the other thing is that I've had like 20, 25, even 30-minute taxis from or to a runway at Istanbul Airport. So next time I find myself over there, I'm going to be extra careful not to unbuckle early. So I guess take a deep breath, sit tight, and wait for that ding. Even if it's the longest taxi of your life. But perhaps good news for some, you can still clap when you land. So we've already talked about stricter baggage rules, but there's another sneaky change going on. Surprise seat fees, and even for middle seats. More airlines are now charging for any seat selection, even if you have elite status. This happens most often with basic economy fares where the price looks cheap until you realize basic basically means nothing is included. Now of course, maybe you're thinking budget airlines have always done this. But when full-service carriers start charging extra for a middle seat in the back of the plane, it really makes you wonder if they're actually any better. At this point, I've seen many different US and Europe-based full-service carriers offering middle seats for sale during checkout, sometimes even at the same price as an aisle or window seat. I mean, a Senate report released in the US last year highlighted that between 2018 and 2025, 5 major US airlines generated $12.4 billion in revenue from seat selection fees alone. So yeah, always double check what's included before you book, or you might end up contributing more than necessary to greedy airlines. Another airline money grab taking shape lately? Dynamic pricing. Not just your ticket, but for basically everything else too. We've seen it plenty before on budget airlines for things like checked bags, seat selection, and priority boarding. But now it's spreading beyond your Spirit and Ryanair, with JetBlue making waves for announcing it will begin to charge dynamic baggage fees. Now, instead of a set checked bag price, prices start at $35 or $40 depending on if you're traveling during peak or off-peak times. And then if you decide to book a checked bag within 24 hours of your flight, you pay $10 extra. So maybe a reason to avoid airlines charging fees like this, but maybe an even stronger reason to go carry-on only. If you're interested in seeing in action what that's like, I've got dozens of flight reviews for you where I nearly always travel with one carry-on bag. It's easier than it sounds. But it's not just JetBlue. Some other US airlines are changing things up too, and I wouldn't say for the better. Southwest used to be the most flexible US airline in many ways. No bag fees, no change fees, open seating. But that's changing. Instead of getting 2 checked bags for free, now 1 checked bag costs $35. Southwest travel credits, which at one time were one of the most flexible airline currencies, will now expire 12 months after issued. And perhaps most surprising of all, in 2026, they're switching to assigned seating instead of their current open seating by groups policy that's kind of synonymous with the airline's brand. So if you like the Southwest of the past, enjoy what's left of it while you can. And it seems like anytime any other US-based airline changes something, United just can't help themselves. In this case, they've actually made 2 big changes. One not so great, and then one that's actually kind of exciting. So do you want the good news or the bad news first? Well, let's start with the bad news. United now will lock you out of check-in exactly 45 minutes before departure for domestic flights. That's 15 minutes up from their previous 30-minute before flight cutoff. 15 minutes might not sound like that much, but if you're flying out of a smaller airport with TSA pre-check and you're used to checking in at the very last minute, this could trip you up. So it's best to always check in 24 hours before your flight, or really whenever check-in opens up, just to be safe. But now for the good news. While some airlines are cutting routes or even ending partnerships, like Hawaiian and JetBlue just did, others are forming new ones, and one of the most surprising is a new partnership between United and JetBlue. This new partnership, or as they're calling it, collab to try to be hip, means you'll soon be able to book JetBlue flights with United Miles and vice versa, earn or redeem across both airlines, and get what looks like a pretty wide assortment of perks like early boarding or free bags if you have status with one or the other. It's still rolling out and subject to regulatory approval, but as it's written now on both of the airlines' websites, it looks like a win for travelers. And if you live in an area that's extra served by both United and JetBlue, like the Washington DC area or the New York City area, then I'd say it's an extra big win for you. And don't forget, pretty recently, JetBlue had a failed merger with Spirit. So it seems like the airline is shifting gears really fast. And yeah, this is one partnership worth watching, and there is a lot changing in aviation these days. But one thing is for sure. The goal of flying is always to get somewhere beautiful, interesting, or even just familiar. And on this channel, I've literally got hundreds of videos sharing my travel experiences all around the world, both on planes at 40,000 feet and on the ground, immersing myself in local culture, testing out experiences of all kinds. New travel videos drop every week, so if you're looking for insight or inspiration for your next trip, or you just want to check out my next trip, make sure you're subscribed with alerts on. And hey, whether you liked or hated this one, hit that button. It really helps either way. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one.